بسم الله. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد عبده ورسوله أما بعد. عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: ستكون أثرة وأمور تنكرونها. قال: يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فما تأمرون؟ قال: تؤدون الحق الذي عليكم وتسألون الله الذي لكم. وعن أسيد بن الخدير رضي الله عنه أن رجلا من الأنصار جاء رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال: ألا تستعملني كما استعملت فلانا؟ قال: إنكم ستلقون بعدي أثرة فاصبروا حتى تلقوني على الحوض، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. رب زدني علما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك وسلم. The few hadith remaining from the chapter of Sabr. The first hadith that was recited, narrated by Hazrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that soon others will be preferred over you, and there will be certain matters, certain things which you will not like. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was asked that, what do you command, what do you order for us to do in such case? The reply was given, and the advice was given that I order you to give the rights that are on you and to ask your rights from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In this hadith, we are given a prophecy that at times there will be leaders, there will be ministers, there will be those who are above you, the rulers, and they will be such that when they pass a certain law, they will pass a certain ruling, you will not be pleased with it, you will not like it. You may feel that it is against you, you may feel that you are being injustice or being oppressed. The matters will seem such. So here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has given this prophecy that in such condition, what do we do? What should we do? What can be done and what should be done when the law seems such that we are being oppressed, or the law is such that we may not be happy with, may not be pleased with. So in such situation, in such condition, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is giving us and guiding us towards turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is giving two guidance in this hadith. One is to be a civilized, law-abiding citizen, to continue the following the law, and at the same time rectify yourself, rectify your ta'alluq and connection and a condition with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Continue your dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ensure that the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are fulfilled. Why? In one hadith, in Hadith al-Qudsi, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this, that Anna Allah la ilaha illa an Malikul Mulk wa Malikul Muluk Qulubul Muluki biyadi. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says that I am Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no Allah, there is no God but I myself, and Malikul Mulk, he is the King of Kings, and he is the owner of the kings and also their hearts. So the hearts of the kings are in the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِنَّ الْعِبَادَ إِذَا أَطَاعُونِ حَوَّلْتُ قُلُوبَ مُلُوكِهِمْ عَلَيْهِمْ بِالرَّأْفَةِ وَالرَّحْمَةِ. When the servants, when the makhluk, when they obey me, when they follow my commands, when they do what they are told to do, they stay within the Shariat, within the limits, within the borders, then the hearts of the kings are made in such that they have mercy upon the makhluk, upon the creation, upon the citizens. They approach with mercy, with kindness, with gentleness. They will make the matters easy for the public and for the citizens. وَإِنَّ الْعِبَادَ إِذَا عَصَوْنِي حَوَلْتُ قُلُوبَ مُلُوكِهِمْ عَلَيْهِمْ بِالسَّخَطِ وَالنِّقْمَةِ. And when the servants and when the makhluk, when the creation, when they disobey me, when they do not fulfill my orders, the laws and the shariat and the borders, they cross those limits, they violate those rights and the limits and the borders that have been set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In this condition, in this situation, the hearts of the leaders and the rulers and the kings are made such that they deal with them with anger and with harshness. So Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is telling us that in such situation, do not busy yourself in trying to rectify others, rather أنفسكم بالذكر والتضرع. Rather you make yourself busy in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in other words, rectifying yourself. So here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is trying to keep the ummah united. That even though if the rulers are such that they may seem that they are oppressing you, in that situation as well, do not rebel, do not retaliate, do not go against, do not protest. Yes, every situation may be different, but this is just a general ruling from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that rectify your matters with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If your matters with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are correct and rectified and right, then the situation in the world will also be correct. But when your matters with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are incorrect, when the matters with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are not as you're supposed to be, your condition and your ta'alluq and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is loose, weak and is broken, then in that situation Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it difficult for you, and then you will be in difficulty and suffering. So in such, a person should think that I will continue following the laws and the rules and that are set and the principles that are set, but at the same time I need to check my own halat and my own condition, instead of pointing out that the leader is such corrupted and this and this. In general situation, there may be exceptions here and there. So in general situation, what do? We to look into our own. Instead of pointing fingers at others and trying to criticize others or trying to find fault in others, a person should look into himself and look at his own condition, that what is my ta'alluq with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is my situation about the laws and the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and my love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the sunnahs of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, how many of them am I practicing in my life, how many are missing? A person should worry about that, and at the same time make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the rectification of the matter. So in one side we rectify ourselves, and the dua on the other side will also continue, that, oh Allah, rectify the situation and the matters. In the world there are many akabir, many ulama, many scholars of ours, in such, they may seem to us that they're not doing anything in the current situation. They're very quiet, they haven't come into the view of the public, or they haven't come into the reports and etc. But we do not know what they are doing in the nights, in the time of tahajjud. We do not know their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are not aware of their supplication and the du'as with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And generally, it is through these such individuals who are at this one time in the apparent, they seem that they're very quiet, but in their privacy, in their private life, in the quiet moments, they are very strongly connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Through such people, the matters in the situation are balanced. In the matters of the situation are equal and they're correct. If such people do not exist or do not in this world, then we will see the corruption in the world. That's why it is important that we don't underestimate anybody. If a person is not speaking out, if a person is not raising his voice loudly. It's not loud in the community or in the, in the media. It doesn't mean that we don't know that a person is not doing anything and the person is not, it doesn't have any care. In their private life, in their secret life, we do not know. They're possible that their ta'alluq and they are doing more than us. They are doing more than us. So here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that there will be times where certain matters will be such that you will not like. But in that situation, do not break the unity. Do not rebel. Do not go against rather stay within the community. Try to keep the community together, and at the same time rectify your own matters, and also make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the matters to be resolved. And the second hadith narrated by Usayd bin Hudayr radiallahu anhu, he said that one of the Ansar, among the Ansar, he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and here he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for leadership. That why don't you appoint me as a leader the way you appointed somebody else? Why don't you grant me the leadership the way you've granted the other person the leadership? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, instead of answering the question here and the request, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave advice and gave a guidance that look, soon you will encounter certain matters, and at that time you have to be patient. And if you are patient, and I advise you to continue being patient, and if you do this, تَلْقَوْنِ عَلَى الْحَوْضِ, you will meet me at the Hawd al-Kawthar. So here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told this Sahabi that you're asking for leadership, but do you know what's going to happen? You're not going to get the leadership. Rather, you're going to be in such challenge where others will rule over you, and you will not be happy with it. You will not be happy with it. You will not like it. But in that situation, I advise you to have that sabr. Be patient. Yes, we follow the rules of and the laws of the rulers and the leaders. The hadith, another hadith, makes it more clear that لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. If the law is such that it leads a person towards disobedience of Allah, if the law is such that it leads a person towards disobedience of Allah, then we move back. And then you say, no, this is my borderline, this is my limit, I cannot go beyond this limit. Now this could be anybody. It could be a parent himself. The parent might say to the child to commit a sin, to lie, or to backbite, or to steal, or to hurt somebody. Then in a nice, correct manner, you say that no, this is the borderline, this is the limit, I cannot go beyond this, I cannot break this law. So it may be the parent, it may be the ruler, it may be the leader, any person who is governing you, any person who is over you, if they are making you or leading you to the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we stop there. We do not follow and obey then. However, if the law and the ruling is such that it is with the Shariat, it is not against the Shariat, it follows the laws of our Shariat, then we follow the laws as well at that time, and we are civilized and also law-abiding citizens. So this is the hadith, two hadith. The lesson that we learn is that there will be situations that where we will not be pleased with, we will not like, and that's where our test will be. That how loyal are you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that you have to follow the rulers and your leaders, continue following them. So here is the test, that are we going to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are we going to follow our own desires? Are we going to follow our own desires and rebel and retaliate and go against and protest? No, we're going to follow the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, there may be some exceptions. There may be some exceptions where we may need to raise our voice, we may need to utilize the means available or the skills available. Sometimes we may need to raise our voice using our voice. Sometimes we need to raise our voice through writing. It may be through other methods, other means available. In such situation, yes, we can raise our voices, but generally when we see that the matter is better to be, to choose that option of keeping quiet and continuing, rectifying our own situation and making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second exception could be that if it's against the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's against the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is leading you towards disobedience, then we stop and we don't obey the ruler or the person who's commanding you. So these are the lessons that we learn, that we need to have sabr in all times, continue obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within the shariat of that's been set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our deen. And we also learned that we shouldn't request for leadership. Why? Because leadership itself is such a role where you will be tested, and sometimes as a civilian, as a public, you will also be tested. but the test of the leader is more greater. That is he being just or not? Is he being fair or is he unfair? So there are more, difficulty in such positions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the reward. And the last lesson that we learn is that one of the reward of having sabr is that inshallah we'll be able to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the Hawd al-Kawthar. When we continue having sabr in obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in refraining from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in difficulties which is out of our control, we don't complain and we don't say anything against the taqdeer and the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then one of the reward, along with other rewards that have been mentioned in the previous hadith, one of the reward is that we will meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the Hawd Kawthar, at the well of Kawthar. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the rewards that we inshallah have the promised for having sabr, and grant us sabr in all types of the types of sabr that have been mentioned. Allahumma ameen. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallah bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة ما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. جزاكم